My name is Ezra Benus,
And I'm Quiles Bonilla.
and we are the Baxter St 2024 Guest Curatorial Open Call recipients.
And we are at our show titled A Small Patch of Sand, Yet It Holds So Much.
So this is a collection of a few different projects that Kevin has been working on starting from 2018 up until the most recent projects realized in 2024. So it's really exciting that we get to show all of these for the first time together. Photographic series, a series of sculptural works, and as well as a kind of medium of sculptural photographic installation work.
So the three bodies of work are titled Carryover, Blue Tarp Series, While You Dread in the Sand, and the most recent series, which is called Islotes, which translates to small islands in English. And I think it was a really great opportunity to sort of see them together and see the conversations that they create. The exhibition really sort of uses as a starting point a lot of iconographic symbols through the island. So beginning with the blue tarp, which became such an important symbol after Hurricane Maria, using the sand, of course, and thinking of Puerto Rico as an island and as an archipelago. And then also the towels, so sort of invoking the visitor's economy, which has become such a defining factor in the island's economy.
The island of Puerto Rico itself, the history, also in the kind of archival space of your family's history to the kind of collective histories, right? It holds so much information and so much emotion, so many stories. And I think that is also what we're getting at here, is that this is a connection between, time and place and histories.
The first series, Carryover, which started in 2018, uses the blue tarp as an iconographic symbol, but also as a performative symbol, referencing the tarps, a material that was provided to Puerto Ricans that had particular damage in their houses after passing of Hurricane Maria by FEMA. And it was meant to be this temporary solution that would then eventually become a long-term solution. Although unfortunately, even 6 years, 7 years, we've seen that long-term solution never actually arrived. And as you're descending to Puerto Rico via plane, you can still see small plotches of communities that still have blue tarps as a makeshift roof or as a makeshift wall. And so with the series, I was thinking about what would it be like to replace the structure with the body. So then in that case, the body becomes the structure that needs shelter, that needs protection.
The Carryover series, which are the framed photographs on the wall, show Kevin donning a blue tarp in different environments, both in Puerto Rico and in New York. And we were really wanting to emphasize that relationship through those works. So there are some photos of Kevin at a beach in Vega Baja where you would go with your family and still go with your family growing up. It's installed right next to Kevin standing on Coney Island in the snow, right, which is actually the beach that I grew up going to in New York.
While You Dread in the Sand began in 2021, and I was specifically drawn to the souvenir shops in Old San Juan. Every single thing that you can think of that can become a commodity has been plastered with this very specific language that often includes stereotypical imagery, a very utopic kind of language, and often portrays an idea that is erroneous of the island. And I was particularly drawn to the towel because of the connection to the beach, but also thinking about how it lends itself to become this canvas so easily. And so I very intentionally wanted to appropriate that language and kind of think of them not just as towels, but as tapestries to present the actual realities of the island. And so the three of the pieces that are on view at the show hold and present actually different sort of documentary imagery from Puerto Rico, like right after the passing of the hurricane. So you see everything from palm trees that have been totally stripped away from their leaves. You see blue tarps, but from a bird's view angle. And then images that I think collectively in Puerto Rico we have been used to for all of our life, was just radar images of hurricanes as they are approaching the island. So it's like this ominous sort of slow approaching of danger that I think that we have collectively sort of experienced since from a very early age, because I think every generation of a family in Puerto Rico has had their own experience with a particular hurricane. And I think it's something, again, echoing the idea of the collectiveness, collective memory, collective trauma, collective history. And then at the center of the space is the latest series, which is titled Islotes, which translates to small islands in English. Through the process of unearthing my family's archival family photo album, I was also researching a lot around the idea of the formation of islands and thinking about the archipelago as a community of islands that from above may seem separate, but underwater are all connected. And to me, that became a really beautiful and very poetic sort of metaphor of genealogical lineage. In a very physical sense, I began intervening these photographs with sand, again, as an iconographic symbol of not only Puerto Rico, but the Caribbean, and began abstracting the bodies until a topography is created on top of them. So at its core, I'm sort of turning these members of my family, multiple generations beyond the time that I was born, turning them into islands and turning their memories into islands. So it's also thinking around my own geographic dislocation, the geographic separation from my family who still lives in the island, and sort of thinking about, the notion of what is that maintains that connection, which is these memories and sort of these little snapshot moments, throughout the temporality that sort of connects us all. Throughout the rest of the bodies of work, I think you can also see that with the shrouding of the body, the covering of the body, the anonymity, referencing not just the individual, but the many.
My practice is rooted in community, is rooted in a sense of providing space for myself and with other folks as well. And I think that is something that is very clear in this exhibition, of making that space, right? And you have talked a lot about how the preciousness of an archive, especially for Latinx families or, brown folks and black and brown folks who also really don't always have access to their histories, because of colonialism, because of access to resources. And I think what we are also really experiencing through your work, Kevin, is that transference of knowledge.
I think also the fact that Ezra is not only a curator, but also an artist has been very specific to sort of like how we worked in the show. I think that artists that work also as curator have a very specific eye. Also the fact that Ezra has known my work and has seen sort of the evolution of the work and the progression of the work really allowed the process to be very smoothly.
It's really about how to best support the artists in sharing their work and sharing the ideas of their work in a way that is not only from their head anymore, but is a way that can be represented to an audience. And I think that's where it moves from the artist's choices and desires to what a curator can and should do, in my opinion.
Not necessarily in such a transactional sort of relationship, but more of a collaborative sort of interaction. And I think that sort of extends to the conversations that we have had through our friendships, and sort of thinking about the expansion of what disability really covers, and sort of thinking about colonialism itself as a type of disability itself. I think probably the place where you can see it the most presented or most exposed is in the sand castles at the beginning of the exhibition, taken from a mold from a children's toy that sort of is thinking a lot about the roles that people sort of get to embody, like while visiting the island, like who gets to rest, who gets to play, who gets to have a space for leisure, and then who are the people that need to provide that relaxation and that joy. Working with Baxter has been a really, really great experience. I think every single member of the team that we have been in contact with, from the director all the way to the art handler, has been just incredible and has assisted us in a way that I have not experienced so much in the past. I really appreciate that.
And for myself as a curator too, it was really, really smooth to be able to have my ideas also be held by people who have their own ideas about how something would look, right? And I think that's where that part of being a recipient of the open call really gave that space for me, for us to make our choices and also give us that space to be firm with those choices. And so I really appreciated that.
We really sort of reached out to our communities, our community of friends, of chosen family that we have here in New York, to kind of collaborate as well. The publication that we made for the exhibition, it was a collaboration between many members of our community, members that we've done residencies with, members that we've done fellowships with, family members. My sister wrote a poem about the series Islotes that we also included it on it. So just thinking a lot about collaboration.
We are primed to think that artworks themselves are the prized possession, but we are actually the prized possession. So the actual most precious thing is the experience of art and sharing art, not the actual physical object itself.